Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is resistance. And it's going to be mixed in with some other good things so we get to have a great exploration today. But before we get started, let's settle in and take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Feel that oxygen coursing through your body. Imagine all that life and light going into your cells. And as you exhale, exhale any tension in your neck and in your jaw and your back and your shoulders, your hips. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine that it's sparkling light, all that oxygen moving through your cells out and beyond your body. And exhale and release any remaining tension. And then let's just gently press our palms together and softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tingling in your fingers, feel the tingling in your palms. And let's get present to being here in these wonderful bodies right here, right now. So today's topic is resistance. And along with that, let's talk about this notion of suffering. So suffering and resistance, I guess we're going to talk about. Some years back, I had the wonderful, amazing privilege of spending a week with the Dalai Lama in a forum that was being created at Lehigh University. And it was very, very profound. And one of the things that I took from that, one of the things that stands out most in my memory from that time, was the statement that the Dalai Lama made that all suffering is a result of misconceptualization or false conceptualization. And I thought about that and I thought, wow, that's really, really interesting. What exactly does that mean? And essentially, it means that all of our suffering is due to the way that we think about things. And a lot of the way that we think about things is by resisting the way that things are and trying to impose notions of what we believe things should be on our reality. So I want to talk about that a little bit more, but first I want to say hi to Dido. Good morning. I'm really, really delighted you're here. And everybody else that's here, thank you so much for joining me. And how about this notion that all of our suffering comes from the way we think about things? And we can bring this to a very fundamental level. Uh, when we think, oh, excuse me. Interesting. So when we think about physical pain, that's like one place that we experience suffering, right? And when we experience physical pain, we have the ability actually to experience that pain from a variety of different perspectives that shift the way to the way that we integrate that experience. So, Sue, hi, good morning. I'm so glad you're here. Choosing where to rest our minds. Exactly, exactly. So, with physical pain, we can say, oh, I'm in so much pain. Oh, it hurts so much. Oh, I'm suffering. And not to in any way minimize the experience of what one experiences, but what can shift the actual experience of the pain is by interacting with it as sensation, for example. So I've been working with some folks who have experienced different physiological symptoms, feeling discomfort, and then through the way of thinking, by they were able through a shift of that thinking to shift their experience and their suffering around the discomfort that they were feeling. So rather than saying, I hate my body, I feel my, I feel disgusting, I feel awful, I feel whatever, shifting to these are the sensations that I'm experiencing, and I don't need to contextualize them further. I don't need to say this is pleasure, this is pain, this is I'm not exercising judgment on top of the experience. I'm just simply allowing the experience to be, and to allow myself to engage with that experience without judgment, going back to the original topic here, without judgment and without resistance, actually was the original topic, without resisting that feeling and judging it and trying to make it go away or wishing it would go away, but just allowing that experience to be. Good morning, Jennifer Reeser. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. It's great to have you. So, we're talking about resistance, and we're talking about suffering and judgment, and how allowing things to be as they are shifts the actual experience of those things, whether it be physical pain, uh, whether it be some kind of circumstance. I recently had a circumstance that occur that I it brought up an opportunity to just sort of work through some different perceptions of things with someone else. And it was interesting because even now I noticed that at my mind started running all these stories about how, I had put all this intention into something, and now, I had a setback, and on and on and on, all this inner chatter. And I was able to recognize the inner chatter rather than really get caught up in it, and to say to the part of myself that was engaging in it, hey, I hear you. I hear you're hurt. I hear you're upset. I hear, you've got all this stuff going on. And just the acknowledgement of that part that felt wounded and felt not heard allowed that part to quiet, because it was recognized, and it also gave me freedom because I didn't have to be resisting the way that things are. So when things don't go our way, uh, or when things look like they don't go our way, oftentimes we just get engaged in this whole rampage about it should be this way, it should be that way, and we can work ourselves into an incredible state. And all of that really is resistance. It is resistance to the way things are. So now, um, when we talk about allowing, it's an interesting topic to bring into the moment that we are going through as a global family right now, with COVID and with a greater rising awareness and willingness to address our prejudices. Hopefully, in my belief and prayer in our path to awakening, to evolving to the next evolution of humanity, uh, how do we make change without resistance? And I know I've spoken about fighting, and the the language of competition and separation that we have in our culture. But how do we, when we are in a place of allowing, like allowing life to be as it is and releasing the resistance, how do we create and generate change and transformation? And I don't think there's a pat answer to that. I don't pretend to have the answer, but it's something we can explore together. But I do know that the resistance of how things are takes an awful, awful, awful lot of energy. And so I think that rather than resisting, and I know I said this, I think yesterday actually, what we can do is put our attention on what we desire. And let's look at the world we want to create. Let's look at what we want to create in our social structures. And let's look at moving forward from a place of engagement rather than resistance, and putting out the energy in the world of inviting in the magic that we want to create in the world. So I'd like to go back to this idea of misconceptualization, and I think that that can operate on so many levels. And ultimately, I wonder if the deepest part, perhaps, of our misconceptualization is imagining that we are limited humans rather than spirit having a human experience. You know, that we're humans having a spiritual experience. And if we connect more with our essential nature, we have such unbridled power and capability in shaping our universe. And the maybe I'm thinking again about what the Dalai Lama said, that the source of suffering is misconceptualization. And so if we look at the way that we define our experience of being human, of one another, of the events that occur in the world, if we look at how our thoughts are actually creating the suffering, then it may give us an inroad to untangling that and transcending it, moving beyond it. And I don't mean to be denying anything. I think that as we allow our identities to clear away, to fall away, the things that we identify with, because so much of our identity is really the things that we cling to, the things that we identify with, the beliefs that we say, well, that's how I am, that's who I am. I think we get to really take a look at what does it mean to allow that to fall away. When we allow all of these things, all these thoughts, the beliefs, the identities, they're all limitations. We think that they are who we are, but what they are actually are constructs that bind us and limit us and constrain us to certain forms of behavior or experience. And what we get to do is to allow that conceptualization to start falling away, and what emerges is more presence, and what emerges is more truth and alignment and connection. And Daido says, is allowing for what is and co-creating change without resistance, a paradox, and or a more Eastern both and approach to life. Yes. So I'm going to read that again. Is allowing for what is and co-creating change without resistance, a paradox, and or a more Eastern both and approach to life. Yes. Once again, Dido, you artfully distilled what we're up to here is both and um, moving beyond our limited notion of what's possible and who we are. Because if we are spirit embodied, then what happens when we allow our connection to that? That's when miracles get made. And I've witnessed enough of that in my life to know that it is a true and real possibility to create miraculous transformation in self and in the world. And oh wow, it's just bringing up a lot of emotion, because I know what's available to us when we allow the veil to fall away, when we allow the illusions that we've created for ourselves of separation to dissolve. And I mean also separation of self from self. You know, we have admired ourselves in ideas about the way the world works, and it's generated from the outside. And when we connect most deeply, all of that separation and all of the limitation falls away, and what's possible is unprecedented magic. And I think that might be the note to leave things on, is the resistance. We get to look more deeply at what resistance is. Like even a deeply held conviction and belief about the way things should be in its own way is resistance, because it's creating a polarity. And so the question is, how do we implement change and transformation if we don't have deep convictions, if we don't have a deep connection? And I think that the ultimate connection and conviction is love and presence. And when we move from that, we can act appropriately without the clinging to a belief. So when we release our beliefs, it doesn't mean that we don't have a foundation in love. It may be that as we release our clinging to our identities and our beliefs, that we have a deeper connection to love and a deeper capability to respond in a truly impactful and powerful manner that dissolves resistance beyond ourselves as well. And when resistance is dissolved, I kind of believe that the resistance itself is really founded in separation of self from experience and from other. So as we release our resistance, all that's left is love and connection. And then that allows us to move into appropriate action and responsiveness. And Sue says deeply held beliefs create a resistance, a polarity. And I know that that's kind of a revolutionary thing to be saying. Thank you, Sue, for reiterating that. I realize that that's kind of revolutionary and it's very counterintuitive. However, when I think there's a difference between, well, I think these deeply held beliefs and convictions and hold us and bind us to not being able to see a bigger picture, to be able to see another point of view, to be able to have equal respect for others, because we're so deeply convicted in being right that it is it is perpetuating and more deeply entrenching our separation. So I realize that this is big stuff to be looking at, and it's not that I don't have any beliefs. However, what I am intending for myself is that I hold my beliefs as hypotheses and not as truths, and that I interact with my experience as exploration rather than as fact, because even my experience is very, very deeply subjective. And so when our beliefs hold us, we're bound. And I think my deepest commitment in this life is to find freedom for myself and for others. And that freedom is a freedom of heart and soul. And it might mean freedom from the limitations of a fixed identity or a fixed belief. And really, I imagine that the truest freedom is to be an expression of life, bringing itself forth in its own expression and moving through me as a vehicle. And so when all resistance is released, then we become a pure channel for life. And that's my latest hypothesis. And I invite you to try it on and see what emerges for you and share that. And so that's it for today. I thank you so much for joining me, and I have such deep love and compassion for you, and gratitude for sharing this journey together. And I invite you to check out the other programming on Enlightened World Network for deepening journeys and awakenings. And I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I'm here weekdays from 9 a.m. Hope to see you again soon.